selection of the bid that best satisfies the requirements of the procuring entity while ensuring compliance with the objects of the Act. As such, the result of the evaluation process depends on the public procurement method and procedures applied to determine the selected bidder that will be recommended for negotiations and/or contract award. For more information on methods and procedures, see the General Guidelines, Procurement Methods and Procedures under the Resource Center tab of the OPR's website. Establishing the framework for the evaluation process. The successful outcome to an evaluation begins during the planning stages of the procurement process, and the evaluation process begins with the drafting of the solicitation documents. So when developing the solicitation document, the requirements of the goods, works, or services to be procured must be carefully considered to allow the procuring entity to determine the elements that must be evaluated in order to achieve the project outcome. Now I will go through the evaluation process. The need for the evaluation process is twofold. First, it offers all potential bidders a fair and equitable method for having their proposal reviewed and considered as a potential solution in a manner that is consistent and similar to their competitors. Secondly, it provides the evaluating committee with a clear and concise method for identifying the competent tenders and ultimately the best overall bid. The evaluation process consists of the following key steps. First, establishing the evaluation criteria, then placing the criteria in the proposal document. Thirdly, selecting an evaluation committee, then evaluating the proposal using the criteria and preparing the evaluation report, including a recommendation for award. The evaluation process begins with the establishment of an evaluation criteria. Evaluation criteria are the standards and measures used to determine how satisfactorily a proposal has addressed the requirements identified in the bidding document. They also play a major role in identifying the best overall cost-effective solution to the requirements of the procurement. One basic evaluation criteria are identified for procurement activity. The procuring entity must decide which criteria will be mandatory and which will be weighted. Mandatory criteria establish the basic requirements of the invitation. That is the minimum number of years experience of the bidder in providing a particular good, work, or service. And weighted criteria represent desirable features which add value or functionality to the proposal. Effective evaluation criteria are objective characteristics. This is like not subject to divergent interpretation. Relate to defined requirements. All key elements of project requirements must be covered by the evaluation criteria. Non-mandatory characteristics. This is that mandatory and being realistic given the context. This is use of measurable standards and sub-criteria to simplify evaluation. Economical to use. The application does not consume an unreasonable amount of time or resources. And being justifiable. This must make sense, can be justified based on common sense, technical, and legal basis. The evaluation criteria will vary depending on the type of procurement method utilized. Typically, the evaluation criteria will comprise of both price and non-price factors. A non-price factor refers to a factor which is not monetarily quantifiable and is assessed using a scoring or weighting system according to their relative importance in meeting the desired outcome. Non-price factors may include quality of methodology and work plan, relevant experience, and client references. Price factors may be used solely or together with the non-price factors. Their function is to determine which bidder provides the most advantageous bid. Price factors may include payment terms, extended warranties, life cycle operating costs, after-sales services, supply of spare parts, and timeline for completion or delivery. Of note, the procuring entity should ensure that the focus remains on the outcome, as having too many criteria will make the process difficult and costly. The evaluation criteria should become the station of bids, not be altered after the opening of bids, and be applied equally and uniformly in the evaluation of proposals. Now, the procuring entity shall select the successful bidder based only on the evaluation criteria and methodology specified in detail in the bidding documents. Now, under no circumstances should new or revised evaluation criteria be introduced during the evaluation of bids. It is recommended to consider carefully the method used for selecting the best offer and ensure that suppliers or contractors are requested to provide all information that might be needed to fully evaluate their bids. Now, once the evaluation criteria is established, it must be included in the solicitation document for transparency and fairness. This now brings me to the second stage in the evaluation process, which is placing the criteria in the solicitation document. The solicitation document should define the evaluation process in summary form, specify the categories on which the bid or proposal will be evaluated, and the weight assigned to each factor should also be identified. Explain the criteria that can or will result in the rejection of an offer. Affirm that the evaluation will include the price and state the relative importance of each major evaluation criteria. And specify the evaluation criteria, sub-criteria, scoring system, and methodology to guide the bidder in the preparation of its bid or proposal. The third stage in the evaluation process is selecting an evaluation committee. The composition and mandate of the evaluation committee is critical to an effective procurement process. Typically, an evaluation committee should comprise 3 to 6 persons, depending on the organization, the mix of skills required, and the number of departments involved. Experience in the following areas is often required to effectively evaluate the proposals. Technical knowledge of the subject matter being procured. Now, this will be the subject matter experts. Applicable law. A legal representative can be represented in this case. The procurement process. A representative of the procurement department. Commercial acumen. For instance, a representative of the finance department. And in-house technology. This is a representative from the information technology department. Must be on every evaluation committee involving software development. Selecting an odd number of members may be helpful depending on the evaluation situation and method utilized. The members should be present for the entire evaluation period and should be involved in reviewing all proposals. The evaluation committee shall establish its operational rules for the evaluation procedure, including regulating the expected presence of the members, power of the chairman, and time schedule of the evaluation process. Standing versus ad hoc evaluation committees. Now, it is important that each member in the evaluation committee understands their role and the critical nature of their activities and behavior process. Some public bodies and evaluation committees. This is where the same members participate in all set of standard of roles and responsibilities to allow for dedication to the evaluation process. This will lead to improved process efficiency and effectiveness, as these members will have a higher level of understanding than an ad hoc committee. On the other hand, having an ad hoc committee instead of a standing committee reduces the potential for collusive behavior, corrupt practices, and allows for new perspectives. Given the size of some public bodies and limited human resources, some members of the evaluation committee may be standing members, such as the finance and legal representatives, whilst the subject matter experts and procurement experts may vary depending on the procurement exercise. This hybrid approach provides the benefits of the standing evaluation committee and addresses some of the drawbacks of an ad hoc committee. To mitigate some of the potential risk of unethical practices, members of the evaluation committee are required to sign conflict of interest and confidentiality agreements to ensure that there are no conflicts of interest and the proposals are kept confidential. So, should the project lead be a part of the team? There may be considerable advantage if members of the committee participated in the preparation of the bidding documents. There are always pros and cons to every given situation. Therefore, the pro of a project lead of a procurement activity being part of an evaluation committee is that the project lead brings the technical knowledge of the subject matter being procured. And the con is that the project lead may influence the process and the outcome of evaluation due to his or her technical expertise. It is best practice to set up the evaluation committee when the project is initiated and have a project manager assigned. In this case, the evaluation committee can make a much greater contribution in assisting the project manager with the following critical activities: developing the procurement activity plan, reviewing requirements and contributing to the creation of the bidding documents, assisting in establishing the evaluation criteria and point system, and evaluating proposals. The role of the chairperson of an evaluation committee. Now, the chairperson of the evaluation committee is responsible for drafting an evaluation report after the completion of the detailed evaluation by the evaluation committee. And he or she is also responsible for presiding over evaluation proceeding and obtaining the signatures from evaluation committee members. For low risk and low value procurements, the designated approver may be the named procurement officer. However, for high risk or high value procurements, the designated approver shall be the accounting officer. This role can be specified in the public body's special handbook and guidelines for the various categories of expenditure. Of note, it is important that throughout the evaluation process, transparency is maintained and is seen to be maintained. It is important that the evaluation committee deals with the evaluation process and the bidders in a consistent and transparent manner. Applying a standard approach eliminates some of the personal bias and takes some of the arbitrariness out of the scoring. A clear and documented audit trail must be provided. All decisions and the reasons for them should be clearly documented, signed by the responsible parties, and filed with the bid documents. I will now end my presentation here, and my colleague, Ms. Melissa Ramkumarsingh, will now take you through the rest of the presentation.
Good morning. I will now take you through stages 4 and 5 of the evaluation process. My colleague, Ms. Marchan, would have stressed the importance of specifying the evaluation criteria and methodology in the solicitation documents. This is the criteria that must be used in evaluating proposals. The first step of the evaluation process is the preliminary examination. During this process, each submission is assessed for completeness to determine whether it complies with the mandatory terms and conditions. Any offer that fails to meet the mandatory requirements should be deemed non-responsive and should not be considered further. The preliminary examination includes the following checks. Verification. This involves a review of submissions to ensure that the relevant forms have been appropriately signed by an authorized representative and that the required documents have been provided. Attention should be directed towards deficiencies, if accepted, would provide an unfair advantage to a bidder. Simple omissions or mistakes caused by human error should not be grounds for rejection of a bid. However, an omission that affects the validity of the bid itself, such as signatures, must not be in question. All copies of the bid should be compared to the original, and in case of discrepancies, the original shall be taken into account, and the fact of the discrepancy should be stated in the evaluation report. Eligibility. If pre-qualification or pre-selection has taken from pre-qualified the bidman may require the submission of a bid security or a bid securing declaration. If required, these should conform to the requirements stated in the bidding documents and must accompany the bid. Completeness of the bid. Unless the bidding documents have specifically allowed partial bids or quantities, bids not offering all the required items should be rejected. Erasures, interlineations, additions, or other changes that have been made should be initialed by the bidder. Now, a determination must be made on substantial responsiveness of bid during the preliminary evaluation stage. A substantially responsive bid is one that conforms to the terms and conditions and specifications of the bidding documents without material deviations. Material deviations are those that affect the scope, quality, or performance of work, supply of goods or services. Those that are inconsistent with the bidding documents, the project owner or procuring entity's rights, or the bidder's obligation under the contract, or those deviations that affect unfairly the competitive position of other bidders presenting responsive bids. The results of the preliminary examination should be included in the evaluation report. And if the bid fails this assessment, the reason must also be clearly explained. Remember, evaluation should be designed with an audit trail in mind, and evaluation results must be reconcilable and repeatable. Now, during the evaluation process, certain aspects may be found to be unclear or contradictory. In such instances, clarification can be sought in writing, and the evaluation committee must agree on any request for clarification before it is sent. Evaluation committees must take great care when seeking clarification. There's often a fine line between gaining clarification of existing information and allowing a bidder to modify or add to the existing bid submission. Of note, the evaluation committee shall neither ask nor permit any bidder to change the price or any aspect of the bid when providing the requested clarification. And the evaluation committee shall reject any bidder and forfeit its bid security if a bidder amends its bid in any manner. If new information is accepted, even inadvertently, there's a good chance that the evaluation process may be invalid. So, having completed the preliminary examination, we now move on to the detailed evaluation process, and only bids deemed compliant during the preliminary examination will be accepted for detailed evaluation. This stage involves the detailed analysis of each offer against the evaluation criteria. It is good practice to establish an evaluation template or matrix utilizing the pre-established evaluation criteria prior to the evaluation process to expedite the process. This template is used to record the evaluation scores during the evaluation. Now, the detailed evaluation consists of a technical or qualification evaluation and a commercial evaluation. Assessing the technical aspects of the proposal is one of the most important stages of the evaluation process. At this stage, the evaluation committee reviews and ranks proposals in accordance with the pre-established criteria specified in the bidding documents. Now, we will continue to stress this because this is very, very important. Evaluation committees work in a variety of ways. Some utilize consensus scoring, where the committee members agree on a score through discussion and analysis. For instance, evaluators may review the proposals presented, discuss the strengths and weaknesses, and agree on the assignment of a score. On the other hand, where independent scoring is used, each member evaluates the proposals independently or separately and assigns a score based on the predefined criteria. The committee member independently justifies the scores allotted in a score sheet, and subsequently, the chairperson of the committee would tally the scores and find the average. In the independent scoring system, if there are discrepancies, such as large gaps between individual scores, a discussion among evaluation committee members can be facilitated to ensure that there is clarity by all members. This discussion would also allow members to benefit from the knowledge shared by the technical experts on the committee. However, this discussion should not be used to influence any member. Regardless of the method used, proposals that fail to meet the relevant minimum requirements specified in the bidding documents shall be considered non-responsive and shall be rejected. A notice of rejection and the reasons for it, together with the unopened commercial envelope in the case of a two-envelope system, shall be dispatched to each bidder concerned. It is good practice to summarize the results of the technical evaluation in the evaluation report, providing the reasons for the decision taken. The importance of compliance with the objects of the Act and the technical evaluation must be throughout the technical evaluation process. We must ensure objectivity. This means that the award decisions must only use criteria that have been disclosed in the solicitation documents. The decision-making process must be fair. We must verify that there is no conflict of interest and ensure the confidentiality of the process is maintained. The process must be transparent and auditable, and we must demonstrate that value for money is being achieved. In terms of the commercial evaluation, only technical proposals that meet or exceed the relevant minimum requirements shall be considered for commercial or price evaluation. Price is an important evaluation criterion, and solicitation documents must clearly state which factors, in addition to price, will be considered in the commercial evaluation. During the commercial evaluation, the committee examines the offered price and takes into consideration any discounts offered and corrects computational or arithmetic errors in the bids. When correcting arithmetic errors, suppliers or contractors shall be notified of the correction and be requested in writing to agree to the correction. A bidder that does not accept the correction shall be rejected, and its bid security, if any, may be forfeited. Also, for comparative purposes, if the bids are priced in more than one currency, they are converted to a single currency for evaluation. The exchange rate used should be consistent with the source specified in the bidding documents. Finally, the proposals are analyzed, compared, and ranked based on the evaluation method being used. A commercial bid evaluation helps ensure that you are getting the best and most cost-effective deal possible by ensuring that everyone understands the price of the requirements. It also allows for clarification and ensuring that there is a clear agreement on the price. It allows for the identification of any issues up front, and it allows the opportunity to take steps to resolve those issues. It also gives the opportunity to understand the terms and negotiate where applicable. During the commercial evaluation process, the evaluation committee may determine that a bid is abnormally low. An abnormally low bid is a bid in which the price in combination with other elements of the submission is so low in relation to the subject matter of the procurement, such that it raises concerns with the procuring entity as to the ability of the supplier or contractor that presented it to perform the procurement contract. While an abnormally low bid may appear to represent value for money, it can result in greater overall costs, contract delays, or even collapse of a contract. So how do you identify and treat with abnormally low bids? Firstly, you must identify whether the bid is or has the potential to be an abnormally low bid based on market prices or the procuring entity's cost estimate. For instance, if the bid price is 20% or lower than the procuring entity's cost estimate, the procuring entity should clarify the bid price with the bidder, which leads us to the second stage. Clarify. The initial assessment should identify issues such as: has the bidder omitted to price some items? And was this intentional or accidental? Are some items priced significantly lower by the bidder than estimated by the procuring entity or the other bidders? And if so, is this an arithmetical error? Of note, the request for clarification must not request or provide the bidder with the opportunity to change its price in any way. Stage 3, justify. The bidder must prepare a justification of their price based on the request for clarification. The bidder's justification should include all the information requested by the procuring entity and any documentary evidence that the bidder used for determining its bid price. Stage 4, verify. The procuring entity must analyze the information provided by the bidder in response to the request for clarification and take account of all the evidence provided. Stage 5, decide. The procuring entity must now decide, using the information, whether it will accept or reject the bid, and include full details of the basis of its decision in the evaluation report. Now, to reduce the risk of an abnormally low bid, a procuring entity should undertake adequate market research and planning, develop high-quality bidding documents, and include clear requirements and precise technical specifications, terms of references, or scope of works. Encourage competition and market engagement. The procuring entity must allow sufficient time for the preparation of bids. It must also provide suitable responses to clarification requests and should do so in a timely manner. Undertake pre-qualification as required. Ensure that the qualification criteria are adequate and appropriate. and prepare realistic cost estimates and update them. Stage 5 of the evaluation process is the preparation of the evaluation report. A template of an evaluation report is provided in the Resource Center on the OPR's website. A clear and documented audit trail must be maintained in the evaluation process. All decisions and the reasons for them should be clearly documented in the report, and it must be signed by the responsible parties and filed with the bidding document. So we'll now go through the contents of the evaluation report. The content should include an introduction. This is a brief explanation of the reasons for the procurement, the objects of the act that the procuring entity has set out to achieve, and a brief description of the project. Secondly, we have the background. The background should provide details on how the project was initiated, any prior approval that was granted, the procurement method that was used, the submission deadline, the firms that submitted bids, and the tender opening procedure. The evaluation of bid section should include a detailed description of the evaluation process and the evaluation method applied, including the bids that were screened or shortlisted for further assessments. It should also include a summary of the bids received, the strengths and weaknesses of them, copies of the requested documentation, any amendments or clarification issued, a detailed evaluation of each bid against the evaluation criteria, and the results of the comparative assessment of bids. So this is really the meat of the evaluation report, and it should clearly document all the procedures that were followed to arrive at this final part, which is the recommendation for award. So the recommendation for award of contract section should provide an overview of the completed evaluation with justified ranking of the bids received, and a recommendation for the selection of a supplier or contractor. It should also include any summary of critical issues relating to the evaluation and the criteria used to select the preferred supplier or contractor. If it is not possible at this stage to recommend a preferred supplier or contractor, the recommendation should then provide an outline of how to proceed. For instance, the recommendation may include negotiations with one or more supplier or contractor once the process permits, reviewing and reissuing the bid documents, or a decision not to proceed. It is important that throughout the evaluation process, transparency is maintained and seen to be maintained. In terms of approval of the evaluation report, the approval for the various categories of expenditure can be specified in a public body's special handbook and guidelines. In the case of low-risk and low-value procurements, its designated approver may be the named procurement officer, as mentioned previously. For high-risk or high-value procurements, designated approver may be the accounting officer. In the case of high-risk and high-value procurement, public bodies are required to establish a Procurement and Disposal Advisory Committee, PDAC. This committee will review evaluation reports, recommendations for contract award and procurement proceedings, and property disposal files to determine whether there was adherence to the Act and the regulations, adherence to handbooks and guidelines, adherence to the approved procurement or disposal strategy, and achievement of the objects of the Act. Where there is agreement by everyone on the results of the evaluation committee or PDAC, where applicable, shall give the accounting officer a written recommendation accompanied by the procurement proceedings file. Following receipt, the accounting officer will review and approve the award decision. However, if based on the review, of the evaluation report and procurement proceedings filed, the PDAC is of the opinion that there is non-adherence to any of the aforementioned requirements. The PDAC will recommend the appropriate action to the named procurement officer or NPO, providing a written explanation of the reasons for its decision. A written explanation will also be forwarded to the accounting officer for noting. Where the accounting officer identifies procedural irregularities in the procurement proceeding, he or she can ask for a review or even overturn the recommendations of the evaluation committee and PDAC where applicable. Where this is done, the accounting officer must provide reasons for such in writing to the NPO, and the procurement proceedings file must be returned to the NPO with evidence, supporting information, and a request that the issue be addressed if applicable. Of note, everything must be documented in the evaluation report. At present, due to the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Property Act not being fully proclaimed, the procedure adopted must be in compliance with EMA's internal policies. So we now turn to the award of contract. Firstly, let's discuss the standstill period. If a standstill period was specified in the solicitation document, the named procurement officer shall ensure that the period is observed in accordance with the guidance provided in the General Guidelines Standstill Period, which can be accessed on the OPR's website under the Resource Center. The Act defines the standstill period as the period from the dispatch of a notice as required by Section 35(2), during which a procuring entity cannot accept the successful submission, and suppliers or contractors can challenge the decision so notified. In this notice, all bidders shall be advised of the start date, duration, and end date of the standstill period, which shall be no less than 10 working days and no more than 15 working days. Upon fulfillment of the requirements of the standstill period, the notification of award shall be issued to the successful bidder via a lawful mechanism that allows for subsequent confirmation of receipt. For example, by registered mail, a reputable commercial courier, or electronically. So this brings me to the end of the presentation. As a form of recap, this diagram illustrates the key stages in the evaluation process, which we would have covered during today's session. We went through the determination of the evaluation criteria, the importance of including the evaluation criteria in the solicitation document, establishing the evaluation committee, the steps in the evaluation process such as preliminary examination, seeking clarification, the detailed evaluation process in a general sense, not specific to goods, books, or consulting services, but covering technical and commercial aspects of the process. And we also address the treatment of abnormally low bids, the approval process, and the award of contract.